Okay, so we're back, and this is part 2 of the TC warm-up, the Traverse City warm-up. I didn't finish it in the last video, and so I thought I would come finish it today. But if you haven't done the first half or some sort of warm-up like it, then make sure you do that, because this is not a good place to start your warm-up. We're going to start with the high register, and you really need some notes before that to make sure that you're doing things safely. So if you haven't played at all today, make sure you stop this video, go warm up, do some other things, play some easy flexibilities. As you may remember, we did some slow slurs and then we did faster slurs, and that's what precedes this sort of preparatory part for the high range, right? So make sure you go back and do those. They're at the end of the TC warm-up that should have been posted just yesterday, although when I make these into videos it won't matter. So anyway, so yes, that it sounded like this. The last thing we did was right? That's the last thing we did. We worked our way down to that from C in the staff. So now we've done that, we're going to prepare to play in the high register, or prepare to do an exercise that is about the high register. And I found that this really helps me get the exercise right the first time, instead of sort of struggling against it. If I do some little preparatory exercises, it's really not much. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a C and an E, and just like we did in the previous faster slurs or Vince slurs, we ended each one with a lip trill. So we're gonna start off where we started on that one, which is a C to E lip trill, right? You end that one. We try to do that lip trill as efficiently as we can. So we're going to start there on that lip trill that we've already established that we can do somewhat, and we're going to work our way chromatically up. So whatever the next partial is that comes out, we're going to play those two notes. So I'll show you the whole exercise, and then I'll pause for a moment so that you can try it out. And just, you want it to be easy and you want it to be fast, and you want to work up to right where it stops being easy and or fast, and that's where you're going to spend a lot of your time. So if you find yourself, maybe you get to D sharp and F sharp, and that lip trill isn't working as easily as D to F. Okay, well then spend a lot of time making F sharp to D sharp easier, and then maybe still go on even if it's not easy, just to see, maybe sometimes it's just this one and then the rest of them. So anyway, here we go. So it'll sound like this. You're just going to kind of work your way up until you find your top point. That last one that we did F sharp, and G sharp with all three valves. You might have noticed also we did F and A flat with first valve. That one's my favorite actually, because that, if I can get that one, then when I go up a half step, but I also play this false fingering for high F sharp, this is the beginning of the exercise we're about to do, and it makes a smaller interval that's only slightly higher. So actually the F to A flat one that I did, this one, if I can get that one really easy and really good, then it's going to be just that much simpler and easier to play. Right? So I'll pause for a moment and let you do that just on your own and sort of work your way up. And I'll just be quiet. Okay, so it shouldn't take much longer than that. I like to pause like that so that you have a chance to do it without having to keep hitting stop and start on the video. But if you need longer than that, then by all means pause and have another go at it. All right, so here's the high range exercise, and I've done this in other videos, and it really is my go-to exercise. But if that last exercise we just did, these little lip trills on these larger intervals at the top of the staff, if that's a struggle for you, you need to spend more time doing that. It doesn't mean you can't continue to try higher than that, but that's what you really need to address, right? This next exercise is not going to help you until those things are taken care of. And that requires a firm embouchure, a good understanding of how you're using your air, that you're not changing the aperture to change notes. That just won't work. And if you want another place to go for this, you can look at page 44 in the Arbenz book. It's a great page, and it's 42 in the newest version of the Arbenz book, but in the traditional version, it's 44. And the two exercises on that page are 22 and 23, and both of them are really great, actually. One of them is a little bit like this one, and the other one is just faster and faster slurs. And that's another good place to work if you're struggling with your high register. Okay, so now onto the high range exercise. We're only going to do a few of these because I've done them in a bunch of other videos, but you'd try to work your way all the way up to high C and double high C. This is it seems crazy when you hear it and when you try it out, but it's actually pretty simple. So we're just going to do an arpeggio up to that same F sharp to start. We're going to play that false fingering. And we're just doing the major arpeggio, first of all, to work our way up there, but also so we can get the slides to make sure that it's in tune. There's no reason we need to play out of tune, so don't forget to pull your slides on this high F sharp with the false fingering. And then we've essentially lengthened the trumpet to its longest trumpet that we can make it, and that's going to make the next part sort of almost a big natural trumpet. So we're going to do a scale with little notes in between. So I've explained it on other videos. You can go check them out there. I'll just do it this time. And you don't have to do all the way down to low F sharp if you don't want to. You also don't have to do 2 iterations of the scale. It helps me for some reason really know that I'm going to get the high note. So again, what are the parts? Well, I'll do G this time. We're doing a G major arpeggio. Again, false fingering, G 1 and 3, so that we can get that whole step. And you'll notice I do the lip trill until I feel like it's really good. And if I don't, I stop and I start over. And then there's a rest, a very short one, and then I just breathe and come right back in on the scale part. So I'll do them separately this time. That's the first part, and then I'm just going to breathe from that position. So that's the basic exercise. Again, it's in other videos, and you're just going to go up by half step. After that, A flat, you don't have to worry about alternate fingerings because that's already a whole step. A, B flat, B, and C. And if you can do the whole octave, then you get double high C by the end. I usually cap out around A or B flat, and that's totally fine. I rarely get asked to play above that, and if I do get asked to do that, then this is the exercise I'm going to use to build my range up to there. So that's the high range exercise I do. And again, you can pause the video and finish that out if you like, if you're just doing this on your own. It's more exploratory and explanatory, so I think it's more apt to just kind of move on into the next thing. And you can pick and choose from these warm-ups what really you feel like addresses the problems in your playing that need addressing every day, which is really anything you want to improve on, right? So okay, the next thing we're going to do is a thing called trill tones. Now, if you're familiar with the Clark book, number 4 is a little bit like this. You might remember. And so on, right? That's number 4 in Clark technical studies, right? Yeah, something like that. Clark studies. And this is a little bit like that, but it has a totally different purpose. Although you could use that number 4 in the Clark book in a similar way. So this is called trill tones. It's a thing that I made up, I think, or maybe my teacher made it up and I thought I did. But basically, we're combining now the air use, our tongue position, which we've now worked with in the high register and all of our slurs, embouchure firmness and holding. We're getting all of that together with that reflection, with that forward sound from the first part with all the lead pipe buzzing and so on. And we're combining all that into one thing so that we have the perfect sort of balance of all the parts, that we feel like our sound is easy to produce and we can play anything we want. So, how does it work? Well, I think of it as trills on different notes of scale in thirds. So I'm thinking of it like this. Like that. But you can think of it any way you want. I will play it for you, and I tend to do the same way every time, roughly. Our goal is to get to a C to D trill that really is banging. That's absolutely only C and only D. Those are the only two notes, and it's really, really fast. So that's the first step. So here we go. We're going to start on G, and these are all just kind of to check. I'm checking to make sure the air is working. I'm checking to make sure the reflection is there. I'm checking to make sure that I feel like my embouchure has the right kind of firmness, that I can hold it, but I'm not tightening it and loosening it. So that's what all the you could just start on a C to D trill if you want, but that's not an exercise. So here we go. And you can hear it's not going to be anything else. There's no chance. When you do this, you may get B flats sometimes, you may get E's sometimes, right? And that just means you need to firm up that embouchure and change that tongue position accordingly so that you get the right balance. A lot of times we're playing too loose and we're trying to play with no pressure because people tell us to do that, but we need a firm embouchure that we can press into a little bit to get stability. It's not just no pressure, right? And you can extend that further. So you can do that. I like it. It sounds a little bit like a little etude with these. And you can hear how I'm sort of hearing those note changes as a scale in thirds. But you can go up further, right? So once you're done C to D, I got a couple wrong ones in there, but that was pretty good. And that's the first one. E to F sharp is the first trill where the closer note is the lower note, right? So in other words, C to D is equally close to C to B flat. That's a whole step either direction. But E to F sharp is further than E to E flat. So that's the real litmus test, for me at least. And then you can continue to go. A lot of people say that you can't really do a G to A trill except as a lip trill. In other words, if you're doing the valve trill, you're also doing the lip trill. But that's actually not true. You can do a valve trill if you're following this exercise through. I'm not sure that it doesn't always work for me, but I'll try it. So we ended on E to F sharp. I'll do that one again. I could never do that trill that fast with my lips. And sometimes it's a tremolo, right? I don't get it every time, because you can play the same note. This is the ultimate. Right, but you can hear it's not that. And it gets away from me a little bit, but again, it's just a coordination of things. So that's another exercise that might really help you. You can sort of do it your own way, right? If you feel like you don't need those first notes, you can just start on C to D and try to get that trill. You could do each trill separately, so you could do. And so on. You know, you can work your way chromatically, however it makes sense to you, but I just wanted to sort of show you that it is possible to do a really clean C to D trill, and that you might gain something overall in your playing from having that as a target and learning how to do it. So that's trill tones. It's the sort of ultimate combination, and you do want to do it sort of sparingly. I think maybe 5 minutes or less a day is plenty, because it is really an intense kind of, you really have to use your muscles and really get everything right, and it's hard to get things right. So if you spend too much time doing it, you can sort of stray off the path if it's not going really well. And of course, if it is going well, then you don't need to do it a lot more. So it's one of those things. Just be careful with it. I don't think you can hurt yourself doing it, but you can certainly ruin the rest of your practice day by being too tired to do anything else. Okay, now into color change. I don't know how long we've been going. I don't know if I have any indication of that nearby, but hopefully it's not too long. Oh yeah, we haven't been going too long at all. So the next one I want to do is color change, and color independent of pitch if possible. So at first you might do this exercise and your pitch is going to change wildly as you change colors, or maybe for a little while you're just having difficulty even figuring out color change. That's totally fine. It takes experience. It takes experimentation. But it's a good way to work on, first of all, your ability to match other instruments, because other instruments, the defining characteristic is that they're a different tone color. And we want to have control over our tone on the trumpet, so that even though we don't necessarily want to depart too far from a good trumpet sound, we might sometimes just want to combine our sound with someone else's and complement theirs. And in that case, maybe we do want to get away from a trumpet sound. Maybe we want to sound more like an oboe or a clarinet. This comes up frequently in chamber music and in orchestras where the melody or other things are being passed around between woodwinds and brass. So it's a good thing to be able to do, and over time you can reel back in the pitch. So it's okay to let it kind of fly at first, and then as soon as you can, you want to start to control that pitch. And I'm sure that I'm a little tired after a day of teaching. I may not be able to control the pitch as much as I'd like to, and so we'll be in the same boat, and that's fine. Again, this is one of those ones that'll wear you out, so you don't want to do it too much. But I also still do it at the end of the day, because I don't want it to ruin the rest of my day, and usually I can do something with it. It's also good at the end of the warm-up, as long as you're going to rest afterwards. So that's why it's in this warm-up. Okay, so what is it? Well, the first thing you want to do is just experiment. Just try to figure out how to play bright and dark. And we want it to be as bright as possible, even if it's gross, and as dark as possible, even if that's a thuddy kind of bad sound. We don't want to pull any punches here. We're learning the mechanism, right? And so what is that? Well, you're rolling your lips. In usually makes things darker. You're deadening the flesh, making it a little tougher, right? And then out, you're exposing inside the lip, that sort of fleshier part of your lip will vibrate faster and easier, and so you're going to get more overtones. And so you're rolling in and out, and then simultaneously you're going to change your tongue position to try to keep the pitch in the same place, and that's harder to do. So at first, just experiment. Just try to go from, and you don't really want this swath kind of like, oh, I'll go gently between the two. No, you want to really hit it into bright gear and then darker gear and then brighter gear, right? So I like B for this. You can play whatever note you want. It's easier the lower you go, but B is a nice middle note. So, oh, and I forgot one thing, and that is that you always want to start with your nicest tone for at least a little while, just so that you don't get into a bad habit of starting sort of off tone, right? You want to start with your nicest. We just spent this whole time, if you did the whole warm-up, the whole TC, we just spent this whole time getting a really great production to be really efficient and easy, and then testing our ability to play faster and higher, and so and then combining all those things, right, with the trill tones. So we don't want to give that up. We just spent a lot of time building it. So start with, I like to, when we do it with a metronome, we'll start with 4 beats of straight tone, just your best tone. And then we're going to go bright and then dark and then bright and then dark. So see if you can just work out for now. Start with your nicest tone and then see if you can make it brighter. And it might drop in pitch, it might go up in pitch. And then darker. Usually darker goes up in pitch, but it could also go down. And just see if you can gain some color control. And I'll do it as well, but you can just sort of freeform it. You might get a double buzz. You might get some other stuff. Great. It's fine. All of it's great. You can refine it over time. Remember, this is a new thing. It's something that you're not supposed to be good at yet. And if you've been doing it a lot, well, then you don't need this pep talk. So now let's get into the exercise. So if you found, if you're having trouble still doing that, just pause the video again, experiment for a little longer, but make sure you take breaks. Again, this is strenuous stuff. So I set a timer for about a minute each time I do this, and I obey that timer. When the minute's done, I stop, and I rest at least a minute, if not 2 or 3. So, and then you can try again, right? So, but now that we're getting into the exercise, we'll use a metronome, and that's way too fast. That's set up from last time. So you might start this at 60. That's a pretty good beginner tempo. I usually do it at 70, and 80 is if I feel really frisky. So we're going to do B, just on the B flat trumpet. And all we're going to do is we're going to start four counts of our straight tone, and then bright, dark, but just absolutely as fast and as hard as you can, and as bright as you can, and as dark as you can, okay? Here we go. 2, ready, and... It's intense, right? And you might do that for a whole minute and just take a breath and try it again. But that's the general gist of it, right? Then you're going to want to play other notes, right? So in other words, I want to be able to arrive on a note when I'm playing a piece and make it a different color right away. I don't want to have to sort of get into it, which is also the reason that we're doing it sort of hard pan, either bright or dark. We don't want this in between, because of course I can choose any color I want in between as a tone color choice, but I want the ability to choose exactly where I want to go and just hit it exactly at the time I want, right? So that's why we're training the mechanism, and then when we're actually playing musically, we'll just let our ear guide us. And that's in general, that's kind of a good rule for trumpet, is if I can physically do if I can get the mechanism to work for me, then I don't have to worry about the mechanism anymore. I just worry about what I want it to sound like. And that's why we do these routines in the first place. So, okay, now we want to play something like a scale. I don't know why, but I always choose D. And you can do this. This is a great C trumpet exercise. If we talked about C trumpet in the first half of this. This is a great C trumpet exercise to do because it's even better to controlling the color on the C trumpet is, I think, a little easier if you have the right C trumpet, I guess. And and you can do whatever scales you want. So I usually don't do this with a metronome. I'll show you without, and then you can do it with me with the metronome. But I usually just go. And part of this is because I want my ear to really hear the pitches that are coming in, that I'm coming into before I play them, and then set the pitch, and that gets me, that makes my tongue position do the thing it needs to do, whatever that is, even if I don't know, right? It makes the tongue do what it needs to do to place the pitch in tune with relative to the notes around it. And I didn't do a great job there, but you also might perceive this as loud and soft, and there is a volume change. I try not to do too much, but that one got away from me a little bit. But it's also a good way to do that. If you play a lot in an orchestra where they want you to play louder, 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 or maybe it's softer, softer, softer all the time, bright and dark do sound loud and soft respectively. And so if you want to use a little more air, you're getting the hand all the time, but you know, you have to come in on this really high soft note, just play it dark and mezzo forte, and it'll sound like a nice ringing piano, right? So that's another thing you can do. Anyway, so now we've trained the mechanism, right? And you could do more scales. I usually just do one. Oh, I promised you we'd do it together. So let's do it together. And we'll go a little faster. We'll go 80, right? And same scale. It's a D major for us. If you're on your C trumpet, C major. And we're going to do bright, dark, bright. So we'll start on the bright side, right? and then we'll stop and we'll start over and we'll do it in reverse. We'll start on the dark side. Okay? So here we go. 2, ready? And then again, starting on dark. 1, 2, ready. Ooh at the end, just because it's nice. So that's that exercise, and now we've trained the mechanism. So of course that's nice, I guess. But wouldn't it be nice if we could actually use it to do something that might be musical? And if you've been listening up to the color change part up to this point, and you've been thinking, why would anybody want to do this? This isn't music. Yeah, absolutely. But now we've trained the parts, right? And I did explain that already, I know. But now we actually are going to put it to use, so you should be excited. So rather than do it, well, we can probably do 80. No, let's. I know I go back and forth on this. Let's do 60 again. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same exercise we did before, but instead of bright and dark, we're going to do straight tone and vibrato, right? So we'll start with straight tone for actually 5 counts. We'll do straight tone for our 4, and then we'll start with straight and then vibrato, and then straight and then vibrato, and then straight and then vibrato, right? And just as long as we have breath to do it, and again, you do this for maybe a minute while just taking a breath when you need it. So let's switch notes too, just for fun. Let's do A on the B flat trumpet. Ready? 1, 2, ready? That's about all I have air for. And you can hear in this exercise that you really just have to anticipate how fast you want that vibrato to actually be, and then you place it that way. And I try to start it on the bright end, which tends to make me have a little darker tone when I'm doing this. And you don't want that necessarily. Like I said, you don't want to get in a bad habit of changing your tone in order to do this exercise. But it is about tone change, and so just be cognizant of that. Maybe record yourself doing it and make sure that the tone that you're saying is a good straight tone is actually the best tone that you can produce by default. So okay, so then of course the next logical step is we do the same thing, but we do it on a scale. We can do the same scale, I guess, or we'll do C sharp. How about? So, and I'll just do it quickly. I think you can do it on your own, but. So that's all there is to it. And as you get better at the color change portion, you will get better and better at your ability to just turn vibrato on, and you'll get better at pitch only vibrato, or sorry, color only vibrato, where the pitch stays the same, which is good to use whenever there's a static source of pitch behind you. Maybe it's piano, maybe it's an orchestra, maybe someone else is not using vibrato or can't, like an organ, but they're sustaining a pitch, and you'd like to add some vibrato. But if you use too much pitch, a little you can get away with, but too much pitch, and immediately you just sound like you're out of tune while you're playing with vibrato, which is bad, because vibrato is meant to highlight notes, right? Just like a trill does. Vibrato is note highlighter, and so you would hate to highlight a note that then everyone thinks sounds bad, right? So that's why this is sort of an important thing. Sorry, I'm going to put some valve oil on while I talk. So then there's one final thing after all this, and I don't necessarily recommend doing all of this as one routine all the time. I think you should pick and choose everything up till the high range. So everything we did last in the first half of the TC, I think you should do all of that pretty much every day. I think you should definitely address your high range as much as you want it to improve. So I do that every day. And then trill tones maybe is not an everyday event. Color changes maybe not every day, but you might start with it every day for a while until you sort of get the ropes, or on the ropes, anyway, until you figure out what it's made of, and then you can figure it out. So there's one last thing we want to do, and that's modes. I use a single mode sheet, this thing here that I got from my graduate seminar in music theory, and I try to choose 2 starting notes. You can't say key anymore because the modes are, well, that's what they are. If you're not sure what a mode is, if you're watching this video and you're like, what modes? It's basically just all the different patterns of the major scale, you could say, right? So if you start a major scale, a C major scale on D, you've got a D Dorian scale. If you started on E, you've got E Phrygian. But and while that's useful if you're playing all in one key, you know, for instance, if you're doing any kind of improvisation in jazz idiom, then sometimes the chords are either altered or they're visiting another key very quickly and then coming back. And so it can be useful to play. If you look in the Arban's book, the scale section makes you play through all the modes in each of the major keys. So, right, it goes. And so on, right? So that's a great place to learn all of your major modes in a key. But I wanted to know all of the modes. If you said C Lydian to me, I want to be able to knock it out right away without thinking about it. And so this is a scale, mode, and chord sheet that's all written out starting on C. And so I can play whatever starting note I want, and I can follow along to see, oh, right now I flat the 7, now I flat the 3rd, and so on. And they're in brightest to darkest modes, which is maybe a matter of opinion. It's a sort of a Greek music thing. But this is one of the things that helps me be able to very quickly get my ear into the right place when I'm improvising. And it also is a great way to work on all your scales. So if you played 2 different starting pitches that are half step apart, you're going to play all of your major scales at least once, except maybe not starting on the tonic of them. And then there's some other hybrid scales and things, and then all of the what they call scales of limited transposition. So that's the whole tone scale, octatonic, either half step whole step or whole step half step, and hexatonic, which is half step and minor third, and or the reverse. And so I'll take you through all of these. I'll do it in C because I think that's easy to follow along with, and we'll do it 1 octave, and then I'll show you what I actually do with the sheet. Okay? So the first one is the pentatonic scale, and this might be another thing. Again, I'll put this on my Instagram so that you can find these things. But the point that I want to really stress here is that you shouldn't look at them as much as you can not, right? So I'm looking at it right now just to be like, oh right, it goes da 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 da. That's pentatonic, which is not strictly a mode, but it's on the sheet, so I play it. So you don't necessarily want to. I don't want to read da 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 da. The whole point of this exercise is that I'm getting my fingers in my ear connected and my eyes off the page, right? So in a lot of ways, that it would be good to do this, let's say in D or in E first, right? Which I guess we could do instead, but I'll do C for now, and then maybe we'll do another one in a second. Again, I don't know how long I've been going. No, it doesn't actually tell me, does it? Oh well. Hopefully not too long. So here we go. In C, the pentatonic scale. And that's going to sound like... And instead of just playing them up and down, if you can, right away you want to start playing them in other patterns. Or... right? Just in thirds, so to speak, and every other note coming back, or some pattern that you make up that you like, right? Now I skipped the next one because it's the relative minor of the previous scale, and it's just the same notes. And since I'm playing them in different ways, then I'm already playing that. I can do the same thing on, it puts it in C as the relative minor. Again, skip that because you're going to play it anyway when you play the other keys. And then I go to the minor pentatonic, or Hirajoshi, or Joshi? Hirajoshi, I think. Kodo. can also continue to do these higher and higher or lower and lower as far as you can go. There's no reason not to. And again, I'll show you what I do at the end with all of the scales. So the next one is Lydian. I guess I'm showing you now. So I usually play them in thirds, and I also usually do them 2 octaves. We'll save the 2 octaves for another day. Maybe I'll run through the modes and you can run through them with me. So that was Lydian. Now we had an F sharp in that one. Now we take that F sharp away. We're back to C major. This is Ionian. Right? And now we're going to go through the cycle of fourths, F and then B flat. Yeah. We're going to go through the key signatures and just continue to add flats, right? So now we'll add a B flat. So the 7th scale degree goes down. We got a tricky one, right? Now Dorian, we add an E flat. And now Aeolian, which is a natural minor. Again, if we're doing these 2 octaves, we will have played this one already, but it's still worth doing. We're adding an A flat now. I did for a long time, when you play a chord that says, let's say C7 altered is what it means. One of the tricks that people tell you is play a half step up melodic minor. And so for a long time in the sheet, if I was playing C, then I would play here, instead of natural minor, because again, I've already done it, I would play up a half step, so C sharp, harmonic minor, or yeah, melodic minor, both directions. So that would sound like. Sometimes I like to mix it up, but it sort of takes you away from starting on C, so I've stopped doing it, and instead I practice all my minor modes as a separate sheet, and that'll be a separate day. So okay, so now on to Phrygian. Phrygian is a flat 2. Another way to look at this is which scale degrees are flatted, and that makes sense to me. So we're adding, we've got B flat, E flat, A flat, now D flat, so that's going to be a flat 2, a flat 3, a flat 6, and a flat 7, if you're keeping count at home. So. And then finally Locrian. Well, Locrian adds one more flat, that's going to be G flat, just right in order. And so now we've got flat 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. And you notice I'm playing them in thirds also because I can't look at that because it's not on the page, right? If you look at the sheet that I've already shown you, it's just up and down scales. That's not very legible. Oops, I went the wrong way. I'm sure you can't really see that, but you can see at least that it only goes up and down, right? So that's another reason to do different patterns, because it keeps you from looking at the page and trying to play the note and like F sharp is second valve. Well, no, it's not. Not if it's trumpet in C, then it's this, right? But it still sounds the same. And so we really need to get good at pulling the sound into our ear off the page and then making the ear tell us what to do on the trumpet. And that's primarily one of the focal points of this kind of type of practice. Okay, so now we're not done yet, because even though we've done all the church modes as they're called, we also have the limited transposition, or I call symmetrical scales. So whole tone, that's just all whole steps, right? So you can start anywhere you want, but we're starting everything on C. this one. So I tried some new patterns. It takes some time to work out, but try your own. Now we're going to do half step, whole step octatonic. So that's you can actually play these also in thirds. It gets a little wonky, but oof, yeah, it's the way down really messes with my ear. And then we can do the same thing, but we'll start with a whole step. So half of the notes are actually the same, but every other note is a whole step higher. So oh boy. So yeah, there you go. There's octatonic, and then finally hexatonic. And hexatonic doesn't come up much, but it's a nice sound. It's half step minor third. And then you can reverse that as well. So minor third first. And it's a exotic sounding. It's not as useful as maybe octatonic is in traditional settings, but it is a super cool sound that when you do find a use for it, it's very cool. So I usually play it too much, as a matter of fact. And that's modes. After that, if you're really interested in jazz improvisation, it's helpful to have a couple of transcriptions ready to go. Let's say you really, I'll play one. I'll play one for you. Let's see if I can think of just little licks, not a whole chart of somebody's solo that you transcribed, but let's see. I'll think. Well, here's a simple one, which is just a little chunk out of a Chet Baker solo. I can't remember which tune it is now. I have it written down somewhere, but it's just that's it. And he follows it up with. And so on, right? But I just like the so now if I'm going to play all my modes and all these limited transposition scales, and I have time left over, it usually takes me about 6 minutes. So if I have time left over in that 6 minutes because the scales were easy, well, then I'm going to play some of the licks again, starting on that same C that we've been starting on. So now that's going to make this lick hard. But then, of course, a different day I'll start on B, and it'll be easy. So, let's see. So it's like a half step below starting, and then a major 7 arpeggio, and going down to the 6 of that. So, and you want to start slow. Make sure you get the right sound in your ear. Again, now I'm not looking at anything. I'm just making sure that the sounds are right. So I guess it's actually a 9. I'm going up to the 9. I said it's a major 7 that goes up to the 9 and back down. All right. And there it is. And I might play 4 or 5 different licks that I have written out that I want to steal, that I might want to play someday. And it takes a lot of time for that to just come out naturally. So anyway, a long warm-up is long, but I hope you've enjoyed sort of the exploratory side of the TC. The first half is a little bit maybe radical, but it's pretty straightforward once you get into it. It's like, oh yeah, I got to get this reflection, got to use that to play the trumpet, great. And then I'm going to move it around a little bit, okay. The high range part, okay, that's still pretty standard, straightforward, gives you at least a way to do it. But then trill tones is getting a little, wonky, and color change is definitely not something that a lot of people do or talk about. And now these modes are definitely very common in the jazz world, but we don't often practice them as classical musicians. And there's no reason why not. The music that you play in classical setting is also made out of the same modes and scales and arpeggios. So you'll only play them better if you're familiar with them, and very familiar. I didn't actually do what I said I do with them, but well, I just play them 2 octaves in thirds just from the get-go. I don't need to play them up and down unless I'm unfamiliar, in which case I'm going to start 1 octave up and down, right? And I want to do the whole thing by ear, which is why I use this one that starts on C, because when I play D, I don't have one written out in D. Although you certainly could if it was giving you a lot of trouble. Okay, then write it out in D, but memorize it as quickly as possible and do it by ear, not by sight, right? If you memorize it by sight, you have to visualize the notes and you're not paying attention to the sound. But if you memorize anything by the sound of it, then your fingers will just sort of obey because they have done the patterns before. So that's the sort of ultimate purpose of the TC warm-up, is to get your physical playing in shape first, to make sure that the production method that you've chosen is really solid, and then to really push the boundaries of what kinds of things you can know. And if you do these exercises every day, there's almost nothing you can't play. You'll be a much better sight reader. You'll hopefully have all of your high range and your low range and your sound and all the color and pitch control that you'll ever need. It gives you an opportunity to address all of those things every day. And while just doing it won't make you any better, doing these exercises and thinking about the things that we've talked about absolutely will help you get better. And so this is a very good long-term exercise, or set of exercises rather, warm-up to do that. Really, I'm still not done with it. You can hear there's little flaws in my playing all over the place that these exercises help me address. So I hope you enjoyed this warm-up, and I will try to make a more succinct version of the whole thing someday. But for now, at least it's out there, and you can pick and choose when you do it and how you do it. And yeah, so have a great day, and I should come up with some tagline about better trumpet playing, so I said that.